In today's video, I want to share with you how I'm composing a fugue for children's chorus. Now, before you get freaked out, what is a fugue? I do have an entire video series called What the Fugue, so you can check that out if you want more detail. But think of it like there's a group of singers or people who have an important message to say. Hamilcar va revenir, Salammbô va mourrir, Hamilcar va revenir. Okay, something like that. It's in French. And they say it first, and then another group of singers gets inspired, and then they say the same thing, but in their own register. Okay? And these are melodies. And then another group gets really excited and wants to sing in their own register. And while each group has the melody, the other groups are doing like something else. So it becomes like this giant party. Okay? So that's how I would describe a fugue for now, but if you want to watch more, watch our What the Fugue series, okay? Now, Salammbô is my opera ballet. It is a huge undertaking, and I'm starting small with some of the choral stuff, okay? And the first thing I did is I want to see my last accomplishment, okay? So I go to my composition notebook, Salammbô, okay? I have one for every piece. And I flip through. Okay, last date of entry is April 20th. Now this has changed, but still, it's April 20th, and it says compose a new middle voice for response in the subdominant. What does that mean? Well, that is technical for me, but I will explain it to get this down. So last session, I wrote on a separate piece of paper. Okay, so if you look at the score, and if you can't read music, it is totally fine. I think this is something that everyone can follow, and I hope that you take an interest in it. So you'll see if I go to measure 24, you'll see in the middle, it is blank. Okay, so I had the other voices. So we have the top voice we call voice 1, then the next voice, which is blank, is voice 2, and then we'd say voice 3, and voice 4 hasn't come in yet, okay? Let me play the outer voices, so voice 3 and voice 1, and imagine beautiful children singing. And just for reference, the melody is okay, so that's the main melody. There's the accompaniment. And they go hand in hand together. Okay, and in the middle, there's another voice that I'm trying to figure out, and which I figured out. Okay, I figured out on April 20th, apparently. And I have it on a separate piece of paper. So basically what I do is I have a full score, which is the official music in the right order, and then I explore in other pieces of paper, okay? And so I look here. The middle voice is nearly impossible for people to hear, or very, very difficult to hear. I also can't play this really on piano because it's for children's voices, but I'll try to make it clear to you. So we have the outer voice, voice 3 and voice 1. We have the top voice, of course. Salammbô, Salammbô. Together. And now let me add the middle voice. Listen to this chord here. That's the bottom. That's the top. This is the middle voice. And again, it's very difficult to hear, so do not worry for a second. Even for professional musicians, it is harder to notice. Va revenir, Hamilcar, Hamilcar. So it's so gorgeous, but it won't be noticed. Let me play one other part. So without the middle voice, this is how the chord sounds. With the middle voice, so the middle voice is totally indispensable. The music will sound very raw without it. Okay, so I found the middle voice in the previous section. And now what I need to do is I need to transfer the work. Because, of course, I figured this out on a separate piece of paper. And now I have to go back to the full score. And just a reminder, in case you're wondering, what is a full score? Full score is like the official version. Like, let's say you're writing a book and you have to submit it to the publisher. That's the version the publisher sees. Or let's say the publisher says, okay, I want to see that you've done some work. You should, okay, here is the official, version, and then you have your notes elsewhere. Okay? It's the same thing in composition, music. So I need to copy over the information, and it took about 20, 30 minutes. The first thing I do after it's copied over is I double check my work. Okay? So when I'm transferring from here to here, it is very likely I'm going to make a mistake, and I do not want mistakes. Okay? And I'm going to assume that there's going to be mistakes unless I have verified. So the first thing I do is I look at the new version. And I'm just approximating what it's going to sound like. But what I do is I listen to it, and do I like it? You understand? So I transfer it over from the draft paper onto the full score, the official version, and then to see if it's correct, I listen to it as it is in my head, and I like it. If I like it, it probably means I did a good job of copying it over. If I don't, if there's, that looks weird, probably there's a mistake. Okay, so you see the first impulse, and at least in this case, was a musical impulse. It's like, it's really tedious to check notes. I don't want to do it that way. So then instead I go creatively. I transfer the information and I just listen. Did I I really like this. I hope this is what I really wrote. And if not, I'll have a discussion with myself. And then what I do as a final check is I do a rapid eye. So I look at the new version. Okay, we have A, we check the notes. Where I find mistakes most is of the lyrics. Sometimes I mess up the lyrics, which is less serious, but still, we want perfection. So I hope that you can appreciate that when you hear the live performance of this Fugue for Children's Chorus from my Opera-Ballet Salammbô. I hope you can appreciate that the work that went into so that it sounds excellent. Now that I've done all this, so keep in mind, this took 30, 40 minutes of just, getting refreshed. I haven't actually composed a new note of music, but this is part of my process. I listen to the score in full time. What does that mean? It means I listen to the music from start to finish, but at the correct tempo. Okay? Because a lot of times we listen at a slower tempo to soak in all the details, to work on things. But here I just want to hear, how does it sound? How is pacing? Because there's a danger sometimes, and I've had it with previous pieces, where I'm not hearing at the right tempo, so things feel too long or not enough sometimes. So I listened in real time. I may have stopped a couple times, but I was listening, okay, how does this sound? And I have a couple of discoveries. So first off, I wrote down at measure 8, it says accompaniment doesn't feel quite right. Let me go to measure 8. So the beginning of that line just feels awkward to me. I'm not fully sure why, but it's something I want to investigate. Then I wrote down measure 26, same issue. notice I'm having trouble playing it. It's not just because I'm not good at playing piano. It's partly, but there's something awkward. It's just something not natural. I don't know. And notice that sounds familiar. Listen to this measure 26. Listen to measure 8. Does it sound familiar? Well, in a fugue, on recycle, we say in French. I spent 5 years in Paris, France for this training. We take things and we recycle them. So we push them up, we push them down, and they bind the piece together. They also give a feeling of freshness because we go to different keys, yet it feels familiar. Okay, so it's another beautiful thing. But check out our What the Fugue series if you want more like specifics. And I also did film a really, really great episode recently, so we'll be having it out shortly. Then I also noticed, so I was doing listening at tempo. Okay, listen to score up the tempo. Measure 16 to 18. What does it say? Voice 1 must be modified or re-examined. Okay, measure 16 to 18. So that is the voice 2. I really like that melody. Listen to it again. I love the buoyancy, the energy, and I think when these children are singing on it with a beautiful tone, and you hear the music kind of fades out, like you have a burst of energy, and then like it fades, and you lose all the momentum all of a sudden. It's gonna be so good, so good. It's just beautiful. We gotta get it performed ASAP, okay? Because I have a lot more wonderful music, and I also have the ballet portion that I haven't been showing yet that I want to start working on. But I'm kind of waiting to get more progress and help us on the way. But more about that later. But I like that melody. However, I don't like the accompaniment on top. There, it's fine. I love the ending. But somehow here... It's just something is awkward. I like the pitches. I like the harmony. I like it, but it's just something with the rhythm. It's very awkward. It's not very natural. So I definitely want to fix it. Now, I want to talk about what I call the walk in paradise, which is a very monumental moment in this fugue. And this fugue is part of a series of short arias and fugues for children's chorus that is building, and this is like the climax. So it's really going to feel like, you know, I've arrived, like you've arrived in the Garden of Eden. It's just magical, okay? I want to talk about that. I first want to mention something. So many of you know I finished my formal training in music composition here in America, the master's, the bachelor's, and even in high school, I studied composition at Walnut Hill. And then I moved to Paris, France for extra training for 5 years. Harmony, counterpoint, orchestration, and fugue. So I can do this amazing stuff, like an opera ballet. Would I have been able to do that before Paris, France? I don't know about that. Okay, but I have to say, since I've come back from Paris, France, I had a very difficult time breaking in. You know, I've moved back recently. I'm now living in Central Jersey, and I feel like a lot of the institutions are closed off, or it's just without a direct in. It's very difficult to get people to play the music, and I think this music is fantastic. So I'd like just to briefly advertise some of the things I have worked on. I have Help Us on the Way for Orchestra. It's my first orchestra work. It's a symphony in 5 movements, and that is ready. So please let me know if you would like to program it or you're want to know about some of the movements. I also have Phèdre, which is an opera oratorio. I have a comedic fugue for men's chorus that is nearing completion. I also have a tragic fugue for women's chorus, which if you've seen the video recently, oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. It's the mix of ancient Greece and French, and it's awesome. And I also have Salammbô, which is my opera ballet. And this fugue for children's chorus is from Salammbô. I have a couple arias for children's chorus, and very soon I'll be composing other music for Salammbô. So let me know. You can find my contact information in the description. And I'm looking for professional as well as amateur, everything in between. I want the music to spread. All right, so now I want to talk about the magical moment. So this was all preparatory work in my composition session. I had to look at what I did before, look for the middle voice. If anything wasn't clear, just let me know. But now I saw the ending. And notice where I put arrival of the fourth voice. So when I do work, I like to have it labeled so it's really clear to me what it is, okay? And so we know we have the melody start like this at the beginning of the fugue. And we added more voices, and we had 3 voices, okay, 3 children's voices, but I'm holding off to a pivotal moment to bring the 4th voice to give that paradise feeling, which you're going to feel very shortly. So that is the melody, but then listen what I do to the melody here. First of all, I changed the key. We were here. How fresh is that? Okay, and listen what I just do it. Notice the life and buoyancy I gave it to, right? The original melody, if I were to play it exactly transposed from the beginning, would sound like this. Right? But instead I do this. So it's like a development. It's called a variation. So I think that's really going to sound awesome. It's going to be these liquid smooth voices. Like it's so tender and so beautiful. We really got to hear it live. I think it's going to be extraordinary. However, this piece is very difficult. I will say you definitely need a more advanced children's chorus, or you would have to a lot more time, probably semester, unless they're a lot more experienced. But I think it's definitely worth it. Some of the other music will be much more easier to put together. Now, so that's the 3rd voice, okay, and I'll get to the 4th voice shortly. And then I have the top voice doing Salammbô, Salammbô, Salammbô va mourrir. Doesn't that sound familiar? And Salammbô. Okay, and then in the middle you can hear Hamilcar, 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 Hamilcar. I mean, I'm hoping that you have a little taster of what's going to come.